Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuchu's Ranker. On this episode we're going to be continuing our albums of the year list. This time it's 2002, and yeah, 2002 is an absolutely spectacular year, a really good year for alternative rock, one of my favourites in fact. So without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are my personal top 10 albums of 2002. So we're going to be kicking off this list with Comfort in Sound by Feeder, which was the band's fourth album, and this is the record that comes directly in the wake of drummer John Lee's suicide. So John Lee and singer-songwriter Grant Nicholas grew up together, and obviously Grant Nicholas has taken John Lee's death very hard. Of course he did, they were best friends, but instead of taking time off, he's instead gone into the studio to basically get out all of that kind of emotion and just kind of cathartically excise himself of that, horrible despair. So as you can imagine, this record is pretty emotionally intense, and a lot of the lyrics deal directly with the suicide of John Lee. Tracks like Quick Fade, Comfort in Sound, Love Pollution, Child in You all deal with Grant Nicholas's feelings revolving around that situation. And yeah, as you can probably imagine, this is a very miserable record. All the life and fun of their previous record, Echo Park, has just been absolutely beaten out the band here, but it can't be helped. And whilst this is a very tragic event, obviously, it does make for a very compelling lyrical performance. I mean, you really want to lean in and hear what Grant Nicholas has to say about all of this tragedy and just horrible despair. So yeah, definitely a complete downer, but an absolutely worthwhile opener for this list. Next up we have Blackened Sky, which was the debut album by Biffy Clyro, and yeah, this is easily Biffy Clyro's most overtly heavy record. Tracks like Kill the Old, Torture Their Young, The Go Slow or Stress on the Sky feature punishing heaviness and blast beats and all of that good old metal stuff. But the softer side of Biffy Clyro is also in display here. The opening ballad, Joy Discovery Invention, is just a really good way to kick off the record, and the huge single off of this, 57, unbelievably catchy. But my favourite track off of this record is Christopher's River, an unbelievably beautiful song about lost friendship. Really good slice of alt rock there. And yeah, and this record is just consistent from start to finish. I don't think there are any really weak tracks on it, and it's a good debut album from Biffy Clyro. And I guess now is as good a time as any to tell my Biffy Clyro anecdote. So I went to see the band live in 2010, I think, which was around about the Only Revolutions period, basically the peak of their success in the UK. They were headlining stadiums, but I went to see them in Japan where absolutely nobody knows them, and I saw them in a little underground room in Daikanyama with about 4 people, including me, in the audience. And after the set, Biffy Clyro just jumped off the stage and went across the room and started drinking at the bar. So basically me and the other members of the audience just joined them at the bar and just started drinking with them. So yeah, I chatted and drank with the members of Biffy Clyro for an hour in a Daikanyama basement. There you go, fun fact. Next up we have Sea Change by Beck, which was Beck's huge breakup record because during recording he was, in the process of splitting up with his long-term girlfriend. And as you can imagine, this is a very dour, regretful, melancholic record, and it's pretty stripped back. It feels very much like a sequel to Mutations on a musical level, lots of acoustic guitars and swelling orchestras, but the lyrics on this are much less obtuse than Mutations. His lyrics are very direct. You obviously know what he's singing about here, which, as I said, is heartbreak and regret, and just basically how to pick yourself up after tragedy and go on with your life. So really emotionally engaging stuff, and the tracks are just great from start to finish. It just has this beautiful kind of autumnal feel to it. The Golden Age is just a great opener. Lonesome Tears, I just love that constantly scaling violin and cello section. Absolutely brilliant. Lost Cause is, a little catchy despite its lyrical themes being completely depressing. All in Your Mind is another emotionally salient song. So yeah, this is just a really beautiful, emotionally wounded album from Beck. Coming in next, we have Highly Evolved, which was the debut album by The Vines. And on this record, you have lots of Nirvana-esque grunge. Well, I say Nirvana-esque, but it's pretty much the opposite to Nirvana, as Nirvana was pretty dark, and this is very, summery and light and kind of upbeat. So inspired by Nirvana, I should say. And yeah, singer-songwriter and guitarist Craig Nichols has a really good way with a sense of melody. Like, his guitar playing is super melodic on this, and yeah, this record just absolutely shines within the melodic department. I just wish that Craig Nichols himself just wasn't such an absolute fucking tool, but hey, even dickheads can make good music, and this record is definitely a case in point for that. And yeah, tons of great tracks on this. In fact, there isn't a bad song on this entire record. Highlights include Autumn Shade, beautiful strummed acoustic central section, and that guitar solo that outros the song, just chef's kiss, just absolutely beautiful. And that segues into Out the Way, a really banging upbeat pop punk song. Sun Shining has a kind of disco element to it. It's really rhythmic and cool. Homesick, a huge ballad, super catchy. Get Free, just a great piece of punk. Factory with its jumbled drums. So yeah, this is just an absolutely fantastic debut album from The Vines. Next up, we have Life on Other Planets, which was the fourth album by Britpop band Supergrass. And yeah, I quite like Supergrass, although you probably wouldn't know it because their records didn't make any of my 90s lists. But I do really like those first two Supergrass records, and they were in contention, and they were always buzzing around the number 10 spot, but unfortunately didn't quite make it. But in a strange admission, to be honest, my favourite Supergrass albums are Life on Other Planets and Road to Ruin. So, I know that's not a popular opinion, but hey, that's just the way I feel about it. I absolutely love those records, so this one is very clearly making the list. And yeah, on this one they're just taking that 70s classic rock aesthetic and just updating it with a modern twist. And this is a record of 12 really good songs. There is no dead weight on this record at all. It's just sprightly and upbeat and full of killer technique. And yeah, highlights on this: opener, Czar, really cool. Rush Hour Soul, great single. Seen the Light, just super catchy. Never done nothing like that before, just absolutely hilarious. Grace is just a magnificent single, and the closing track, Run, probably my favorite song off the record. I love those building synthesizer and keyboard riffs and the Queen-esque vocals on it. Just absolutely brilliant. Another chef's kiss for this list. And yes, Supergrass, I'm sorry I snubbed you in the 90s, but I do really appreciate what you do. So we're going to be kicking off the top 5 with The Remote Part by Idlewild, which was the band's third album and also most successful record. This got to number 3 in the UK Albums Chart and features the band's only top 10 single, You Held the World in Your Arms. So yeah, a huge hit for the band, and also this is easily Idlewild's heaviest record. There are times on this album where it just borders on being straight metal. Tracks like You Held the World in Your Arms, A Modern Way of Letting Go, Out of Routine, they just thrum with this really intense, brutal energy. It's really cool. But also the more emotionally astute side of Idlewild is also on display here. They are very much the thinking man's heavy band. The cascading riffs of American English, the emotional fragility of I Never Wanted, the REM-esque folk rock of Live in a Hiding Place, and the Smithsian ballad Tell Me 10 Words. Yeah, really great tracks. And yeah, this is just another absolutely fantastic record from Idlewild. It has a really kind of like cold, lonely Scottish Highlands kind of feel to it. Yep, awesome stuff and highly recommended. Coming in next, we have Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by The Flaming Lips, which was the band's 10th album, and wow, what an album to make as your 10th LP. Most bands are washed up and off the boil by album 10, but The Flaming Lips are just hitting their stride here. This record features lots of electronica and trip-hop elements, combining with the band's usual acoustic instrumentation and lush string sections. And yeah, the result is something that sounds completely unique, compounded by Wayne Coyne's distinctive Neil Young-esque voice. And yeah, this record is a flawless 5-star masterpiece comprised entirely of highlights, some of which include the emotionally spectacular Do You Realize? I mean, people get married to that song, it's just fantastic. The crazy catchy title track, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots Part 1, the beautiful In the Morning of Magicians, and I absolutely love the acoustic guitar work on that, just absolutely brilliant, and the trip hop infused Are You a Hypnotist? So yeah, basically, if you haven't heard this one, just drop what you're doing and go listen to it. It's absolutely essential. Coming in third place and taking home the bronze medal, we have The Last Broadcast by Doves, which was the band's second album, and yet this is just another 5-star masterpiece. I mean, from the last entry onwards, these are all 5-star classics now, so I can probably stop mentioning that and repeating myself. But yeah, this album combines slow building art rock with cool rhythmic flourishes and a really tender emotional core. It's got a really big heart, this record. And yeah, it has a great kind of laid back, calm down, nighttime vibe to it. Basically, this record just feels exactly like its artwork, and yeah, it's just stuffed full of absolutely unforgettable tunes, the brilliant arpeggiated guitars of Words, the slow build up and payoff of There Goes the Fear, the gospel elements of Satellites, the pounding drums of, well, pounding, and the beautiful anthemic closer Caught by the River, Chef's Kiss. Mwah. There's another one, a third one for this list. That's too many Chef's Kisses, man. I'm telling you, I gotta rein in the Chef's Kisses, but you can't help it when you're dealing with records this good, damn. So yeah, this album is just straight perfection and another absolutely must-hear record. Silver medal time, and the silver medal is going to go to A Rush of Blood to the Head by Coldplay, which was the band's sophomore effort and also arguably their best album. And yeah, this is just a flawless alt-rock album that completely delivers on the promise of the band. And this record was a huge worldwide smash and transitioned Coldplay into the biggest band in the world, and deservedly so, as this record is just full of monumental classics. The quiet, loud dynamic of opener Politics sets the stage nicely. In My Place is awesome with its basic but super memorable harmonic guitar riff. God Put a Smile on My Face is the first song that I personally think about when I imagine Coldplay's typical sound, and The Scientist is just a gorgeous mega ballad. I absolutely love that piano line, and tracks like Green Eyes and Warning Sign thrum with romantic and emotional energy. So yeah, this album is successful for a reason, and that reason is that it's just fucking awesome. If you've not heard this, obviously go listen to it, but yeah, let's face it, you all know this one, you've all heard this, it's great, you know it is. Just undeniably fantastic stuff from Coldplay here. So here we are at the top of the mountain, and the gold medal for 2002 is going to go to Turn on the Bright Lights, which was the debut album by Interpol. And yeah, on this record, Interpol are basically taking that kind of New York underground energy that the Strokes had and just taking it very much to the dark side, into the world of post-punk. And just like that Strokes record, this is super cool. And back in 2002, again, this felt very much like a breath of fresh air, like we were seeing the future. It was absolutely magnificent. And this album uses that kind of Strokes-esque guitar style where you have the two guitars kind of interplaying with each other. It's just a really cool sound, and Paul Banks's monotone Ian Curtis style voice just fits right into that groove. And yeah, this album is just the coolest fucking album, like maybe of all time. That sound is just so alluring. It just sounds like sex and drugs and just like dirty seedy backrooms and like latent violence and machismo. It's just such a cool fucking sound, And on a personal level, this was a huge deal for me, this record, because to be honest, I wasn't into post-punk before this album. This was the record that got me into post-punk, and yeah, I will never ever forget the first time I ever heard Interpol. Like, I was on the couch making out with my Japanese girlfriend, and yeah, MTV was on in the background, and this song came on. I was just like, what the fuck is that? And just sat bolt upright, like in the middle of making out. I was like, what is this music? And it was like PDA by Interpol, and at that time I'd never heard anything like it. And the very next day I went out and bought this record, and yeah, it's a fucking masterpiece. And it was just so impactful for me. It changed pretty much everything. Like, it changed the way that I comported myself. It changed my dress sense. I mean, I wore black pretty much every day for about 2 years after this record. And crucially, it also was hugely influential on my own music. I mean, if you listen to my band's like early records, there's Interpals just all over those records, probably to an embarrassing degree, if I'm being honest. But yeah, so I absolutely fucking love this record. It's just fantastic. I love every single track off of this. Highlights include Obstacle 1, just that fantastic guitar and just the cool nature of it, the really intensely maudlin NYC. Again, those twin guitars on PDA, absolutely brilliant. Say Hello to the Angels has an almost kind of This Charming Man Smiths-esque element to it, with its really cool chiming disco guitars. The last couple of tracks on this are really spectacular as well. The New has a lot of kind of experimentalism to it. I really like the flow of that track, and the closing track, Leif Erikson, maybe my favorite off this album. Really fantastic emotional closer. Again, really cool guitar, but there's cool guitar across this whole entire record. So yeah, turn on the bright lights for Interpol. Easily my favorite record of 2002, and 2002, lest we forget, is an absolutely stellar year. And yeah, if you haven't heard this record, you are really truly missing out. It's an absolute classic. And that's it. That's my list for 2002, but that might not be your list. Please sound off in the comment section and tell me all the masterpieces that I've missed. Like, share, subscribe, and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Take care of yourself. Check back for my 2003 list, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.